How's it going, guys? I am John Rogers, and I'm going to be walking you through a 2018 Ford Edge brake pad replacement. This is my first time replacing my brake pads on my car. I've done it on my motorcycle. Didn't think it was very challenging. The biggest key is to make sure you're watching plenty of videos from professional mechanics before you get involved, and obviously ensuring that you have the right tools and the right parts for the job. Once you have the parts and tools you needed, then you're ready to get started on your job. One of the big things is to make sure that you put your brakes in brake maintenance mode, and that'll be displayed on the screen. I'm not going to read that piece to you, but you can freeze it, look it up. Please make sure that you have it in maintenance mode before you work on your brakes. I start on my rear brakes. It could really damage the calipers in your brake system. The next step is to make sure you're in a safe area. I did mine outside. I made sure I was on a flat, level surface. You're going to remove your brake cap reservoir, which is just to the left of your battery as you open up your hood, and it's a little bit farther away from you, but you want to have that completely removed. When you start messing with your pistons on your brake calipers and you still have this cap on there, you could create pressure within the system. It could crack the plastic or crack a gasket or cause problems. So you want to make sure that there's no cover on there. It's always safe to do that first thing so you don't forget to do it later. I actually ended up replacing my brake fluid. I didn't have that included in this video, but it is something that I recommend if you haven't done in a long time. Before I jack the car up, I make sure there's protections in place so the car doesn't go rolling on me and the stand doesn't fall over when it's jacked up. I'm going to loosen these up a bit with my 13/16 impact, just to make it easier when it's lifted. Taking it off and just hit start and then finish when it's done, okay?
No, straight off.
That's good. There you go. Take this off with the 7mm and this off there on the back right here. And this one. You can see where they go in right here. Occasionally on the back of these bolts you'll have a black rubber cap. I didn't have those on the back of mine, but when you order new ones from Rock Auto, they give you new replacement caps. I don't have a video of me popping off this retainer, but I used a flathead and pushed up and out, and Rock Auto gave me a new one when I ordered this part as well.
Don't bend the wires.
Yep. I had my son Roy help me out with this brake job so he could see how this process works for
this
when he's
piece is
older.
out, but and then you're right.
You can either hang these brake pads up through the opening where the bolt goes, or you can flip them inverted and lay them down. Just be conscious of how the brake hoses are aligned so they don't get kinked.
Get back to back here.
Here's a visual of how worn my brake pads are compared to my old to
new. Number 7 was our lucky number.
I ordered this
here.
brake kit from Amazon. You may need this to compress the pistons on your brake and make sure that your brake reservoir cap is open when you're doing this. My son stopped recording me, but here's the finished product. The pistons all the way in, and then now you're ready to put your brake pads in. I think this is an excessive amount of lubrication. I actually ended up taking this back off and wiping the excess, but you want it to have some lube on there on any part that's touching metal to metal. You also want to make sure there's not any part of the brake pad that has lubrication on it touching the drum. I like to lube up the threads, make sure it's easier to get off next time, and make sure it's secured on the bolt. Now it's time to shift and do the same thing on the other side. After you finish the other side on the rear, I recommend taking it out of brake maintenance mode, putting your brake cap reservoir back on, and then taking the car for a test drive. After you've seated your pistons back in by pumping the brakes, you'll feel it lock in, and make sure that you did your job correctly before you shift to the front brakes. So unlike the rear, the front has a few differences. The caliper slide pin requires 11 millimeter hex Allen socket instead of a 7 millimeter hex socket like the rear brakes required. The retainer for the brake pad, you'll notice, looks different than the rear does, but it's the same concept. You grab a flathead, manipulate the angle, it's very flexible, and you just pop that retainer
For this,
off.
I used an old brake pad, the one that was already on there, not the one that goes in there with the springs, but the one that's flat. Use the old one. I used a different tool for this, and I rest it in here. Push it up against that, and boom. Put it on both sides. I've already compressed it, I just wanted to make sure you could see that. I'll start on this side, work it to the other side, and go back and forth. To release it, go like this. Good to go. Alright, I slid this in here. The springs go into the back. You gotta pinch them a little bit when you slide them in. And then this one's already gonna be locked in here. This one looks like it has an adhesive on here. I've already slotted it on here.
Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Make sure you do all your prep work and all your post work and test drive, and make sure you're being safe out there. God bless.